Chamber of Mines in Johannesburg this hour, where we just heard a representative from the South African independent power producers. He just finished robustly addressing crowds, venting worker frustrations in the mining sector and the lack of transformation in the sector really, and poor working conditions. He really made a vociferous call for an end to labour brokering and also a call for sharp focus on job creation in the sector. They do want a response in 40 days, signatures being penned to the memo of demands this hour. In a brief response, the Chamber of Mines say they support the anti-corruption and state capture stance of Cosatu and support the call for judicial inquiry. On job losses, the Chamber says a collective solution should be found. At the same time, in Limpopo, well, before we go to Limpopo, as you've heard, thousands of Cosatu members took part in the Labour Federation's main anti-state capture protest action and anti-corruption march today. The Labour Federation and the SACP have been calling on President Jacob Zuma to step down. Cosatu and the SACP, who are members of the ANC's tripartite alliance, have thrown their support behind Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa ahead of the crucial December elective conference. Hence, some analysts have questioned the motive of today's nationwide strike. Well, for an analysis of what happened today, we are joined from our Pretoria studios by political analyst Professor Somadoda Fikeni. Good afternoon, Professor, and thank you for your time on the SABC News Desk.
Afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers as well.
Prof, I want to start off by talking about the impact of such a march that we had today on the public consciousness, especially as we head to this crucial December elective conference. Will it serve to unify or polarize South Africans in the next few months ahead of us?
Well, I do think that there is a greater consensus and unity around the question of fighting against corruption in the country, with the rising revelations of different kinds of scandals and some of the state-owned companies asking for bailouts in the midst of many irregularities taking place there. I do think that you do have consensus. Only a few would resist that particular interpretation, especially those who happen to be involved and those who may support factions which are seemingly deeply involved. And the only difference, though, which may be debated is whether this by Cosatu was timed to deal with the issue of succession and put political pressure. But at the same time, they have been raising these issues for some time now to say, let there be investigation into the state capture. Therefore, it wouldn't be something that is seen as not being consistent with their call.
Prof, earlier we heard Cosatu President Stu Dlamini saying this march has nothing to do with factional battles or politics, but rather about fighting labour brokers and corruption and allegations about state capture. But we do have footage of people singing anti-Zuma songs and so on. Dlamini also dismissed claims from other unions, for example, the South African Federation of Trade Unions, and we heard from NUMSA earlier of South Africa that the march, such as this one, is rather disingenuous. What do you make of it?
Well, I do think that it was inevitable that the call for Cosatu, which is a formal position for President Jacob Zuma to step down, would be amplified in this march. And as such, others would also associate the very corruption and the state capture very closely with him. So to that extent, it would not have been conceivable that Cosatu would have this march and not use the opportunity to attack him. Therefore, the president might have just been expressing a position which was never going to be realized in any realistic manner. In terms of this being disingenuous, that the party is marching, I do think that, to be fair to Cosatu, they have been raising these issues, but not as energetic, and perhaps the debate as to why they could not have joined the other civil society marches would be another issue that is actually raised as a grievance by those who participated earlier, to say that Cosatu opportunistically would have waited until now, and also so close to the ANC succession conference, and therefore they see it in those political terms. But in a country where corruption is a rising tide, any pressure, I think, would make sense irrespective of where it comes from, because there is a general call for corruption to end.
Prof, can the ruling African National Congress and Cosatu mend their widening chasms or internal rifts at this point?
I do think that at this point it is rather too late, and also the position of calling for the president of the ANC to step down might be a deal breaker in this sense, because President Zuma still has strong presence in the NEC of the ANC, in the National Working Committee, and therefore as long as he is around, it's unlikely that the relationship between the SACP, Cosatu, and the ANC, or even Sanko for that matter, will be mended. It might just be that particular challenge. But at the same time, their support for Cyril Ramaphosa, that is the Alliance Partnership members, might be the one that gives some glimpse of hope if he were to win, to say we may revive this particular relationship, because the issues being raised go beyond just one role player, the president. If you see the state capture, it has now implicated many people, and quite a considerable number within the faction that supports the president. So long after he's left, because you still have the political presence of many people who will be fingered, if Cosatu and SACP remain true to their demand, it will always remain a point of tension.
Professor Somadoda Fikeni joining us from our Pretoria studios. Thank you once again, Prof, for sharing your insights with us on the SABC News.